The Sooners stood out at the NFL Combine. Let's discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Oklahoma Sooners really stood out at the NFL Scouting Combine. Yes, they only had 3 players there, but each of those 3 players, Danny Stutsman, Ethan Downs, and Billy Bowman, really helped themselves up there in Indianapolis.
Oh, yeah. They jumped off the page for live. For example, Danny Stutsman running a 4.5 240-yard. Like, a lot of people were wondering how fast Danny was going to be. I mean, a lot of us expected the 4.7 range, maybe at best 4.6. 4.52 made him skyrocket up boards just because with his 34-inch vertical and his size, you know that he is a downhill linebacker. Like, he's going to go through and he's going to stop the run. That's what he's built for. I mean, we watched him hit Jalen Milroe like on the first play in the Alabama game. Everybody's like, ooh, didn't realize he had that in him. Even though he's been doing it all year.
Right.
He's been doing it his whole career. But that's Danny's game. And then, of course, he's got a great personality. It makes it even better for him. And so he jumps out to everybody. But getting that number was huge. And then from there, Ethan Downs, I don't think anybody out of the 3 that went up their stock more than what Ethan Downs did. 4.69 40-yard dash at 270 pounds, well, 269 to be exact. And then he led our defensive lineman at 32 reps on the bench press. Ethan Downs has made himself some monies this week.
Yeah, so at defensive end and edge, that 40 time was number 10 in his position group. But listen, he's running against guys that are coming in at 235, 240, 250. Mm-hmm. He's got 20 pounds more on them, and he's still running a 4.69. That 1.62 second 10-yard split, that's the one right there that stood out the most, because that's what you're asking your defensive lineman to do, right? Really get into the backfield 10 yards. I need you to have good burst right off the snap, and he's going to be playing a lot of strong side defensive end, and they going to be asking him to chase down from the backside. Well, he's shown he's got the speed to do that. And then obviously the bench press, the 32 reps at, again, defensive end, that's huge. I've said it and I'll say it again. Defensive coordinators are going to love Ethan Downs. They really will, because he does all the dirty work for you. He's going to be able to hold up against the run. He's going to be able to set the edge, and then he's going to be able to give you some plus pass rush from time to time as well. He's not going to be a guy that starts day one, I don't imagine, but he is somebody that can be a rotational defensive end and have a long career at the NFL level, because he's a leader. He's smart. He knows what he's doing. He knows his job. He knows his responsibilities, and he's going to stand out. Ethan and Danny Stutsman, I mean, the world's getting to know Danny Stutsman the way that we know Danny Stutsman, right? He's a character, and he's going to be somebody that, and I said it on social media, that NFL fan bases are going to love. Whichever NFL fan base he lands with are going to absolutely love Danny Stutsman.
Yeah, he's going to be the fun one to have on your roster just because of, like I said, the personality, who he is, what he does. He's one that's going to be beloved by fans. And then you got, ball hawking Billy Bowman Jr. out there, 4.42. That, to me, right there solidified him as a potentially top 80 player in the draft. He should be an easy day two. The comparisons was Antoine Winfield Jr., safety for the Buccaneers, came from University of Minnesota. Dad played for the Vikings. And, yeah, I can see it because Billy is so good at ball hawking. And it's funny, the one play that analysts keep showing, John, that makes me see that they understand what we appreciated most about Billy was that Luther Burden play. Like, I mean, we saw Billy with his pick sixes the last couple of years, and, he's been able to do a lot of that. Cool. But a fourth down play with a dude that's fast. Mm-hmm. Billy immediately sniffed it out, got the right angle, leveled the kid out of bounds before you can get the first down. And that's like the one play. I've seen it like 4 or 5 times floating around different draft analysts. Like, yeah, this Billy Bowman kid, that play right there, yeah, that's why you draft a player like him, because he's going to find a way to find the ball, and he's going to He's going to have the burst. He's going to get there, and he's going to hit them, and he's going to stop them in their tracks. Billy definitely proved that he deserves to be there, especially with that 4.4 240.
Yeah, he's going to be one of those guys that, again, defensive coordinators are going to love him because he's a matchup player. He can play in the slot. He can play against tight ends. You can have him play some free safety. He can play a little box safety too. He's just versatile. And that's an important aspect in today's NFL, where you have to be able to kind of play matchup football a little bit, and you have to deploy your defense in a way that tries to take away, certain teams' best players. He can do a lot of good things for you on the football field because he's so athletic and he's so fast. But yeah, that 40 time was fourth best among safeties. And again, he showed off his athleticism in a big way in the broad and the vertical as well. So a big day. And listen, I know the Sooners only have 3 guys that went to Indianapolis, but can I run down a list real quick for you of guys that I think could be at the NFL Combine next year? R. Mason Thomas, Dominic Williams, Gracen Halton, Marvin Jones Jr., Kip Lewis, maybe Kobe McKenzie, Kendall Dolby, maybe Gentry Williams, John Mateer, Deion Burks, Derek Simmons, Troy Everett. And listen, if Jaren Kanak takes to that tight end H-back spot, I mean, that's a bold prediction, kind of a player. That's why I put a question mark next to his name. But I mean, you could have a bunch of dudes at the Combine next year because this is a roster that's continuing to develop.
No, I totally agree. We've got a lot of players that, I mean, heck, even the pro day that we'll have, it's going to be, I think that there's going to be a player or two that's going to shine to where NFL scouts going to be like, yeah, I actually may, need to draft him. I think Michael Tarkin could jump up, right? I think Caden Woolard with his size and his strength.
And he's got a good year of production to his name too.
He does.
Not at Oklahoma, but that you're not going to discount that Miami of Ohio season at all.
Nope. It was all about health when he got here, and he's got the build for it. So as long as he, shows, I'll put it this way. I think Schmitty, with the way that not only Ethan Downs led defensive ends this year with the bench press, but was it last year Isaiah Cole led all defensive tackles on the bench press? Like, Schmitty has a reputation, but he's building these dudes to make them strong. And I bet if Caden Woodard goes in there and he hits the bench press, 20, 30 times, team's going to be like, oh, that's another one. Look at that one right there.
Yeah, I think a guy like Trace Ford could really help himself too at Pro Day, running the L, running the 3-cone, like showing off his athleticism, the way he's able to also drop and play in some coverage. He's going to be a really fascinating one to watch at Pro Day. I think he'll help himself a lot as well because he's got a history of production. Injuries kind of stifled his development, and then he landed as part of a rotational defensive end group at Oklahoma. But there's a lot to like about his game that, again, a defensive coordinator at the NFL level would really enjoy to have. So to me, kind of a comp for him would be like a DeMarcus Lawrence, who played pretty well at Kansas. He was at Boise State. Sorry, I'm thinking Dorrance Armstrong that was at Kansas. A Cowboy that was a 4th-round pick for the Cowboys. Just kind of started off as a rotational defensive end. Didn't really do a whole lot, but slowly got more and more time and more reps, and then broke out. And he's had a really, really nice career. So, but I think it's going to be fun to see how many Oklahoma Sooners could get drafted at. Right now, I'm probably sitting at like 4. I'd say 4.5 is probably the over/under on Oklahoma Sooners that get drafted.
I think that's a fair number.
I think a guy like Luke Elzinga, like that's a dude that could get drafted. And I know we don't want to sit here and say punters get drafted, but I mean, punters get drafted sometimes. And because they value special teams and especially defensive coaches value the punting game. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him get drafted because he was pretty good for the Sooners this past year. Anybody else? Yeah, that's probably about it.
I think that's about it as well.
That's about it. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And for your second listen, go check out the Locked On College Basketball podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. Don't wait for March. Be the most informed college basketball fan now. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports. Follow me at John 9 Williams. You can read my work covering the Sooners at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you next time. Boomer
Sooner. Billy.